Bigger footy time. We are back to preview the prelim finals. It's finally here. We're finally at the final
Best week in
four.
footy, isn't it?
It is the best week. It's for the footy purists, isn't it? We're going to get not only the best week, and not to sound too Victorian-centric, Link's probably going to hate me saying this, but...
And so will I. I'm Adelaide.
Wow, yeah, technically. But 2 prelims at the MCG. And I'm not saying that it's better, but it's just nice. The last 3 games of the year are at the MCG, and we're going to get close to 100,000, I'm sure, for both prelims and 100,000 for the grand final.
Yeah, although at the risk of predicting the weather, I think we've got some...
Bad. So I think it's 14 or 15 degrees Saturday. Friday's okay. I think the Friday temp is all right. Might be a little bit of rain around, but the Saturday game feels like the middle of July.
Really?
Yeah, it will be cold. It'll be wet, and it's going to be twilight. So that's going to be interesting, but that won't impact the Collingwood fans.
No.
They're still going to go there. And don't forget the Brisbane Fitzroy connection. I'm sure they'll still find a way to get some fans there. But we can't wait. We're pumped. And so we're just going to dive straight into it. Worth noting that in this preview, teams are not out yet, so we don't know what's going to happen in terms of change and players getting up.
We did predict them last week, though.
We did predict them last week, even though we recorded that and got that out on the Wednesday. But we got there. But look, let's go chronologically. Let's get straight into Geelong Hawthorn. JJ, if I grabbed you 2 weeks ago before the first week of the finals and said that the Cats would beat the Lions and the Hawks would find their way to the prelim, what would you have said to me?
Not that hard to believe, because the Cats have looked. I've liked the Cats' preparation. I've actually liked the easier preparation, because I've felt other teams have been playing finals for a month, and Geelong were able to just do whatever they wanted, time their run, pick their moments when they wanted to turn the volume up, and then other times they could cruise, they could rest a player or two, sub a player or two out. And clearly, I think that preparation has proven to be a good one, because they turn up in the qualifying final against Brisbane and they just go bang and they smack them out of the park. So they're rested and they're ready. In terms of, I think the ruck selection or non-selection, again, we're talking before the teams are picked, and Geelong, the team's not picked until the team is actually out on the ground. I think Blitz halves up against Lloyd Meek's not a great matchup for Geelong. I think if Blitz has to wrestle Lloyd Meek 100 times, it'll take away from his athleticism. The hardest thing to do is wrestle and then run. He wants to be able to run all day and test Lloyd Meek out, particularly if it is a bit slippery and there are more stoppages. I think having the ability to play Stanley in the ruck for even 60% of the game, and then if you can sub him out, just so that Blitzhouse can do other things, because Blitzhouse can't do all the other things you want him to do if he's having to stand there and wrestle, and particularly on a wet day or a slippery game or a high-pressure game even, if it's repeat stoppage after repeat stoppage, we're wrestling, and that's taxing. Blitzhouse is 103, 104 kilos. Lloyd Meek could be 110, 112. So that's the first interesting element. Can Stanley get himself up, and will they pick him so that it allows Blitzhouse to do other things? And then Asheen Mullen against John Newcomb. Newcomb's turned into Dusty, and Asheen Mullen has turned into Cameron Link. So it's going to be a fascinating matchup.
Totally. And I was going to bring that up. We did talk about that earlier in the week, and you spoke about Mullen's attributes. So we're sort of across that. But the other Hawks player who's on fire that I wanted to get a bit of a matchup preview from is Jack Gunston. He's kicked 5-3 in a semi-final. If you told me this, but if you told me at the start of the year that Jack Gunston would play in a meaningful final and kick 5 goals, or just a meaningful final, I would have been shocked. But to kick 5-3, dominated Mark Keane. He's an All-Australian. He's kicked over 70 goals. Who's the Cats defender that gets the matchup?
They do have good matchups for him. I think Jack Henry's the first port of call. If Hawthorn go in with the normal lineup that they've had, they've got Lewis. I think Sam De Koning's a good matchup for Lewis. Mabior Chol probably gets Connor O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan could go to Gunston, but it might be a case of the wily veteran can be a little bit too clever for the youngster. So I think Jack Henry is, and Jack Henry, I've spent time with him and played against him a lot at training. He's a very underrated defender. He's very good overhead. He's very stable, got great balance, doesn't get beaten often. So he's a better athlete than he looks as well. He's got good vertical leap and good closing speed. So I think he's the matchup for Gunston. But again, if Hawthorn are able to use the ball and change angles and lanes like they did against Adelaide, it won't matter, because Gunston will just get on the move. He'll get in behind and he'll be able to hit up perfectly and get involved in the game. So I do think Geelong's back seven has been their weakness, their little suspect area across the season. I think particularly Sam De Koning's had his moments of struggle. Now, I doubt Mitch Lewis is going to tear him apart in a prelim final. If he has his Mason Cox game, then so be it. You just got to dip your lid and say good luck in the grand final. But I think that's the area where they've just been a little bit down. Tom Stewart was very good in the qualifying final. I think when he plays well, they look a lot better behind the ball.
And I wanted to talk to the coaching battle because these are probably the two best coaches at the moment. I mean, Chris Scott definitely, yes.
I think
Mitchell.
We've probably got – who have we got?
Or Fagan as well. I'm probably forgetting him there.
We've got Fagan, Mitchell, Scott, and Craig. Probably got four of the best 5 coaches in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see this game playing out? Because you just mentioned before Mitchell obviously won the tactical battle against the Crows. The way that they kick the footy, all the ball use that they have. The Cats, I mean, Chris Scott's a genius in terms of how we can take something away from an opponent. What do you think, if you were to go in the Cats coach's box, what do you think Chris Scott would be most worried about?
I think he'll be really keen for them. The MCG is an interesting element because of the size of the ground. It suits both teams.
Is that easier for the Hawks?
I think it suits both teams. Okay. I think Geelong are the best running team in the competition. And 4 years ago they were probably one of the worst. Or 5 years ago they were probably one of the worst when they were getting to semis and prelims but not getting the job done. Now if you look at their team, have a look at their team from
Dempsey getting up and down
qualifying
the wings,
final, they even their key position players, they can all run. Like Blitzarves we spoke about. O'Sullivan's an unbelievable runner. Shannon Neal used to run 800s competitively. Stanley's an athletic ruckman. Max Holmes and Bailey Smith around the ball. And then you've got Close, Myers and Manor as half forwards who get up and back. So they cover the ground unbelievably. Like Danger's probably the only one who's not a good endurance runner. Yep. And he's, in there because he's got extreme power.
Yep.
So they run incredibly well, but so do Hawthorn.
Yep.
So I think it'll come down to the way Hawthorn can, if you allow Hawthorn time to kick the ball around.
Yep.
With Amon and Impey and Sicily and these guys, I think they'll be dangerous, and that'll be what Chris Scott will want to take away from them. Don't give them time to get it, turn, and be able to hit a target.
I don't know why this is the game that comes to mind immediately when I bring up this question, but JJ, I remember you on radio in 2022 ahead of the grand final, and you said, take away everything that happened between these teams earlier in the year because they played so long ago.
Yeah.
So Geelong and Sydney didn't play between round 2 and the grand final in 2022. And it's not as stark as this game. So these sides met on Easter Monday, which is round 6, which is back in April. So what are the coaches and the matchups? What's the mindset going in when you actually haven't played the opposition in that long?
Yeah, I think it's just more around what they've done against other teams recently. That game, I called that game actually that Easter Monday game. And it looks close on paper, but from memory, I don't think Geelong were ever at risk of losing that game. That's how it felt. Sicily played an absolute that's why I looked at the numbers the other night and I thought, gee, Sicily's numbers look good, but from memory he played like a dog that game. That was when he was going average.
I remember the game really clearly, which is kind of rare considering how long ago it was, but I remember the Hawks ball movement was completely stifled. I remember a lot of we talk about the Lions and how they take risk. I thought the Hawks took way too much risk and the Cats just gobbled it up. So I think what you were saying before around the types of kicks and the movement that Chris Scott wants to stop and defend against, I feel like they got the job done in that game. And maybe 7 points flattered the Hawks a little bit, but the Cats got it right on that day.
Yeah,
and
I can recall. And that's the thing when you're a kicking team and you get your kicking taken away from you.
There were some bad kicks in that game.
You either really get back on your heels and you don't know what to do and you start going safe and then you kick it long down the line, or you bite off ones that aren't there. And that's what happened a little bit. There was some disposals or some decisions that just weren't there. Chol and Gunston kicked 3 each in the game, so those guys are still in pretty good form. Yeah, I wouldn't, to answer your question, I wouldn't even. I'll go back and watch it because I think from a game style perspective it's worthwhile. But again, it was so long ago. It's barely, particularly from Hawthorn's perspective, it's hardly even worth worrying about because they're such a different team from what they were. What is that? 20 games ago, almost 19 games ago.
And we spoke to in our last ep around some of the matchups. You spoke a little bit about potentially Josh Battle goes to Jeremy Cameron.
I think that's the way it goes.
You think that's the way it goes? And Barrast obviously goes to Neil. That's a sort of a clear matchup. But what about some of the others? Hardwick, some of those other Hawks versatile defenders.
I think, unfortunately for my man Ty Stengel, he's probably going to get Hardwick. But Stengel's capable. He's a capable player. Only needs a couple of moments. He's not going to have a day out against Hardwick because Hardwick's just in rare form. but you only need a couple of moments and taking your moments. So if Stengel's held to 8 or 9 disposals, if you get 2 or 3 shots at goal, just make them count. So, yeah, that's an interesting matchup. And I also think the almost the tactical battle between the Cats high forwards. You've got Myers, who's playing a little bit more midfield these days, but Mana's really important. Mana runs up to stoppage and gets involved.
Yep.
So do the Hawks go with him and try and stifle him at the source, or do they let him get it and then try and win it back? Like, all those little details I think are important. So when Brisbane have played Geelong, Zorko's just said, you can go up and get the ball, you're just going to kick it back to me, or I'm going to get it back and we're going to go back at you. Whereas other clubs want to go up and put physical pressure on Mana or physical pressure on close so they can't have an impact at stoppage and don't have a +1 around the ball. So I think that's going to be an interesting tactical battle. It might be dictated too by which team's on top. Like, Danger goes straight into centre bounce in the first final. So we barely see him at centre bounce all year.
Yep.
And then Bailey Smith gets flipped out to the wing.
Yep.
And they tell me he accepted that really well. That probably would have been and for all the nonsense around Bailey, he wants to win. Like, he doesn't really care if you ask him to play in the back pocket. He does want to win. So he flips out to the wing, has probably his lowest possession game of the year, or one of his lowest possession games of the year. Dangerfield goes in and gets busy early and has an impact at centre bounce. So they can flip it around. Do the Hawks tag Holmes? That'd be the one. Nash is not really built to tag Max Holmes, but Max Holmes is still the one I want to sit on. I don't want to get beaten by Max Holmes because I know he can beat me.
Are there any other Hawks players you think that could play that type of role? If Nash isn't suited to Holmes, is there anyone else that it doesn't really feel like there's a matchup?
It's just because of the power running.
Oh, yeah.
But I do have a view that you can try and stop it at the source. So, like, be physical with him around the ball so that he can't then get on the charge and he can't link up and bumper bar him in play when he's trying to get on the move and get running. Like, be physical with him. Again, though, like we said about Asheen Mullen and his tactics, that takes such extreme discipline. Like, the ball's right there. No, I'm going to worry about Max Holmes. I'm going to put physical pressure on him. Like, it's just unnatural.
Is it more natural to just let them hunt as opposed to...
Yeah, it's just natural to let your players go and hunt the ball. Because then that's the other thing. Like, well, do you want to commit someone to a tag? And if you haven't got the right person for the job, you're not doing either. Yeah. Haven't got someone winning the ball at the source, and you haven't got someone doing the actual job of stopping Max Holmes. You're kind of doing next to nothing. So I don't know they've got anyone who can do it, but I didn't know Ed Langdon could run with Nick Dacos either.
It's a really good point.
So maybe they could put it. It would be a massive surprise.
Yep.
A massive surprise. But again, if you can find someone to do the job, because Max Holmes is the one. I think Max Holmes is the one that can really separate in these type of games.
Absolutely. Boys, I'll go to you, JJ, first. Just in a couple of words, prediction.
With not much confidence, I think Geelong are the better team. I think Geelong are just a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I'll tip them.
Link?
I think the way Geelong have just, as JJ was saying about how they've managed Paddy Dangerfield throughout the year, like the way the whole squad, they just feel like they're primed for 2 weeks' time. So yeah, it's just so hard to tip against.
They're
the Cats.
scary, the Hawks are.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm edging Geelong but if the Hawks rock up and do what they normally do and kick the first 3 or 4 goals and the game's on their terms, it's going to take a lot for the Cats to overcome.
If it is, the Hawks don't feel like a team they're going to be overawed by 98,000 at the G either.
Didn't stop them in the elimination final last
year. I think
year.
they're probably going to love it, to be honest, with all their celebrations and everything they've got going on. They've got a few under a bit of an injury cloud. Ginnivan's got some hammy tendonitis and a few others have got some concerns, but
they're a better team with Cal Shadir in there as well, and he obviously couldn't get up for the 6-day break. I don't know what he's.
No, I think he's at risk. I don't think he gets back. At all.
Well, then Mitch Lewis is going to have to do a lot more.
Yeah, and again, we're talking before selection. I mean, I think they'll go with that same mix, but you can't rely on the fact you can just sub him out. No. Like, he's not going very well, and he's going to be a great player, and he has had great seasons, but he's not going very well, and he could be a liability if he can't have an impact. And you can't, again, I've said this a lot, you can't rely on subbing someone out. Because if someone gets knocked out 5 minutes into the game, Lewis has got to play the whole game. So I think they'll pick him, but it wouldn't be an absolute stunner if they said, no, let's go with Mabior and Gunston and maybe some flexibility with Weddle ahead of the ball. It wouldn't stun me if they did that.
I haven't minded Weddle going forward a little bit.
Yeah, he looks good.
He was pivotal in that
He looks
Giants
ready
game.
to really do some damage.
Absolutely. Oh, well, moving on, because there are 2 prelims, thankfully, and the next one comes obviously Saturday twilight. It's the Pies and the Lions. It's I guess you could call it a 2023, well, not really a rematch, but it is a repeat of that unbelievable grand final. And I think leading into finals, the Pies were probably the team that we were most worried about. Didn't give them a lot of hope, and then all of a sudden they win that unbelievable qualifying final against the Crows. The Lions, though, go into it with just a heroic victory, really. There's nothing more you can be said about it. Now, all of a sudden, we get this massive prelim, but I'm really unsure about how this game plays out now.
Yeah, so am I, because these 2 teams, Link, have played recently.
Yeah.
They have played each other recently, but
And the
Collingwood
Lions,
were in the midst of whatever that was. So
yeah, I don't know what that was.
So how much do you read into that game? So and I think that was the game. Was that the game where DeGoey and Hill both made the cameo? Yeah.
Yep.
So, we've got the best version of DeGoey now. So, he's probably going to play a fair bit of midfield time. So that completely changes things. And again, I don't know how much you can read into this game.
No.
Logan Morris kicked 6 for the Lions.
Yeah, he did. Well. He dominated. And I think, Smith had kicked 3 goals as well. So, what I do remember is Rayner and Bailey had not touched the ball at halftime. Like, no involvement. I think Bailey had 3 and Rayner had 2. And Rayner kicked 2, had a dozen and laid 8 tackles in the second half, and Bailey went berserk, had 17 and kicked 2 in the second half of that game. Like, both guys just went completely crazy. It was a game where Brisbane didn't mark the ball that much. When they take 100 marks, we know they just win for fun. But they didn't mark it much in this game, but they dominated around the ball. Lockie Neal had a big game. I think I've got the numbers in front of me, had 36 in the game.
Yeah, it's probably his best game for the year.
So he's not going to be there.
Yep.
But McCluggage had 34. They don't tag Collingwood. So McCluggage, again, gets an opportunity to be the best player on the ground. Dunkley played a really good game. Will Ashcroft had 30 as well. Yeah. So Brisbane's prime movers are going to get their chance. Nick Dacos had 29 and a goal. But and for people who can't remember the game, it was a really good game. I was there for radio. Nick Dacos was amazing until the last quarter, and then they all just put work into him. Yep. It was like they also had a plan before the game.
Yeah, if
it's close, we're into him. And like Jasper Fletcher was bashing into him, and they were all bashing into him. And I think he only had 2 touches in the last quarter.
Yep.
So that was interesting because Dunkley's not suited to playing on him really. He probably can, but I don't think he's suited to him. He's a bit shifty and a bit nifty for him. But clearly when it comes to the crunch, they're willing to play on him. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a feel for this one either.
If you're Chris Fagan, and clearly last week we went into that Q clash knowing that Dunkley was going to row.
Yep.
Are you putting Dunkley to go given his performance in the qualifying final?
Yeah,
I 34 in his last prelim as well to go.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
I do like that call. I was having a look at some of the numbers between the 2 teams the other night, and he's the one who does feel like he can change the game
because he can take him forward as well. If DeGoey goes forward, Dunkley can probably
that's right. So Brisbane, I haven't got to the rest of the team, so I don't think I'm just being biased towards the Lions. Brisbane's last 5 games, they're number 4 in the competition from getting the ball from their back half to a score. They're number 3 from defensive half to getting it inside 50. They're number 3 from their back 50 to a score, and they're number 2 at getting the ball from D50 to forward 50. Yep. So whether it's getting it in there or scoring, they're the best. They're one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the competition. They're also top 4 for back half score launch, so winning it back in their back half and scoring. And they've been known, and they talk about all the time being a front half team. But the numbers also tell us they're pretty good at getting it at half back now with Ashcroft, now with Fletcher and Zorko and Wilmot at winning the ball back and then taking it in there. Where they're not good is scores from stoppage and scores from centre bounce. So they're number 13 scores from centre bounce. Again, this is the past 5 games, not across the whole season. And they're only number 12 for scores from stoppage in total. So if it's a high stoppage game, they might find it hard to score because their profile tells us they haven't been able to score that well from stoppage all year, and they are also number 18 in the competition, so last in the competition for marks per inside 50. So they got to get it in there a lot to get marks and get bang for buck, but marking's not the only way you can score. If you get it on the ground with Rayner and with Bailey and with all these guys inside 50, they can still do the job. So their profile is quite obvious. They don't want a high stoppage game because they don't score from stoppage. They want to be able to get the ball end-to-end, play in transition. So do Collingwood, who like to just go long down the line and play the boundary, do Collingwood look for stoppage so they can potentially get an advantage? That's going to be the battle in the coach's box.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because you said if it's potentially a high stoppage game, it doesn't suit them. And we are still looking at an early-ish forecast. But at the moment, it's saying that Saturday is going to be 15 degrees and it's like classic Bureau of Meteorology saying it's between 1 and 10 millimetres. But it looks like there's going to be some rain around and we don't know whether that's early in the day, later in the day. We've got no clue. But just say there's some rain around during the game. It becomes greasy. The Lions can't get their mark game going. It becomes a bit wet, so thus more stoppages. That clearly suits the Pies, you would imagine.
Yeah, I think.
Not saying that the Lions can't win that way, but it probably suits the Pies.
They can definitely win that way. They won that game recently in that type of fashion. They didn't take many marks in the game against Collingwood. So, but it's basically saying to Brisbane, we'd prefer you to win left-handed. Like you'll probably have to win left-handed. So. Lions have shown they can do it, but it's certainly. I think it's certainly, and the other element is if the ball's on the ground a lot, it means it's in dispute a lot. It means the crowd's in the game. It's going to be 91, 92,000 Collingwood fans going berserk. So that's tough to come up against. I mean, Brisbane have shown they can handle it. They don't mind. There was a big crowd there. I'm not sure what the crowd was for that recent game, but it was 82. It was a big crowd. They played in a grand final where they were a breath away from winning that game as well. So. It would be advantage Collingwood, but it certainly wouldn't be a game swinging outcome, I don't think.
Do you look at Collingwood any differently knowing how Adelaide performed in their semi-final?
I do, yeah. Good question. So, we both like racing. I don't know if you're a big horse racing.
Not as much.
But if you wanted to do your footy form like horse racing form, Collingwood's win all of a sudden doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, footy's not horse racing, but, in those terms, the win doesn't look as good. So
it doesn't, but Pies off a break.
The break helps.
Massively.
The break helps
them more than for a lot of other teams.
Yeah, but I think if you want to mount that case and look at it in that light, the Collingwood win doesn't quite look as good. But, if having said that, horse racing form, if Hawthorn come out and win by 5 goals on Friday night, then all of a sudden the form does look good because Hawthorn have franked it by smashing Adelaide and then beating Geelong. So, they're two games I really don't have a feel for. Like, I think ordinarily you like to have a lot of confidence about the outcome. You like to sort of go in with a strong belief that one thing's going to happen over the other, but maybe the beauty of these two prelims is it's hard to be super confident.
All will be revealed Thursday night, but if you're Craig McRae, and this is without me knowing anything at all about what's happened, but would you pick Bobby Hill? All the talk is that he's looked good over the last couple of weeks. He's clearly a difference maker when he's playing at his best.
But
would you do it?
It's impossible for us to know because I mean, I did some radio on the weekend with Josh Gablich from AFL.com who said he'd done 4 sessions in a row. And I'm like, well, that's not much.
No.
Because he hasn't played for a while.
Yeah.
So,
that Lions game was the last game, I think.
Yeah.
Well, do you pick a Bobby Hill who's done 4 sessions in a row, or do you keep in a Rowan Steele or Will Parker, albeit different positions?
Yeah.
You can throw the maggots around who have done 50 sessions in a row.
Yeah. Well, I think these are the only games where integrity of selection
means nothing.
Almost goes out the window. Yeah. It goes out the window a little bit. So if this was grand final week, I think they'd pick him. I think they might in a way just hope he does all the right things in the lead up to this game, not pick him, and then hope he does the right things in the lead up to the grand final and pick him for the grand final. I think that's because, again, I don't know enough about it to know how much work because the reality is there's just a conditioning element.
Yeah.
Are you fit enough to play the game?
Yeah, that's the most
So, if he's not, and we don't know. So if he's not fit enough to play the game, they can't pick him. And you probably can't even pick him as sub because, again, if you get an injury,
that's going to be my next question.
You need him for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're going to hope he does the right things all the way up into this week. Keep him hanging and strung along that you could be a chance to play because he could be. And then probably not pick him. And if they win, I think they want him in their team for grand final day, particularly a player that's done what he's done in a grand final.
Absolutely.
I just don't know. I just don't know if he's done enough work to play.
Yeah.
And that's only they would know that.
Well, that'll be the interesting selection for grand final if the Pies win. If the Lions win, the interesting thing for selection will be Lachie Neale, who's told everyone
Won't
he's
be
a
fun.
chance.
I'm happy to go out on a limb.
He can play with injury.
He can, but he can play. I don't think he can play with a torn calf because there's nothing you can do for it. It's not like, Nigel Lappin's broken ribs where you can jab it up or, you've got a knee that you've got to drain.
You've got a torn calf, you can't run properly.
You can't run. Yeah. So, and it's just going to tear and tear and tear to the point where he just has to give up.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think they were saying, because they ruled him out, right, for the season. And, if there was even a glimmer of chance, they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
They would have left it. So, I think even if they do win and all the attention turns to is Lachie going to be able to get up, I think it'll be a Callum Mills scenario where they just write him off early. So it's not a distraction.
No point, yeah.
I just can't see, because
it'd be 3 it would be 3 weeks.
How much footy has he played before that? He was injured before
he missed
that.
4 weeks before that. Yeah.
So he's played
It'd be 1 game in 8 weeks if they were to make it through the grand final.
Yeah.
That would be second.
Yeah. And I mean, he's your co-captain. He's won 2 Brownlows. He's the best player you've had for the last 10 or 15 years. You want him out there, but
you don't want him out there at 70% either.
And you don't want him out there for 10 minutes.
No.
So
he'd be saying that, I'm sure. But I think it's probably a little bit of an injection into the, I guess.
And he'll know, because there'll come a point, if they win this game, there'll come a point next Wednesday or Wednesday week where for 30 minutes he has to do the main session. And it'll almost be problematic if he gets through it.
Yeah.
Because the main session's not a game.
No.
It's enough to prove that you might be okay, but it's not enough to absolutely guarantee it. So we had the same thing with Mitch McGovern in 2017. He was coming off a hammy and he was unlikely, and they said to him, you have to train flat out, and he ripped his hammy in the main session. He ripped his hammy in the warm-up, actually, of the main session.
It's a good thing.
Which I mean, for him it was devastating. But for us and for everyone around, and even for all the news outlets, well, that's done. That's an article tonight, and that's on the news tonight, and then it's done. No one talks about it again. So it'll be interesting on both fronts.
Couple of sentences, who and why?
I've got to stick with the Lions. I've got no confidence in either game, and maybe I'm reaching more in this one, but I just think that their best. I've always maintained that their best is the best. And I think we've seen every time we've asked for them to show their best, they've shown it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they're not coming off a rebound game in this one. They're coming off a really strong win. But it's a prelim final. I mean, how much, you shouldn't need to rebound. So I am going to take the horse racing form line and suggest that Collingwood's win doesn't quite look as good against Adelaide. And I'll stick with the Lions, who are hopefully going to get a chance to go back-to-back, which would be something.
Link?
Yeah, I think the Lions too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, they've played in enough big games now, this group.
Yeah, well, they've gone from being petrified of the MCG to almost unbeatable
And
at the MCG.
How many times do we have to say they're finally cooked before? It happens every time.
But we're saying that because we watch them and we see occasions where they look cooked. That's why we keep saying it. We think they're cooked and then they prove they're not, but they almost are. I think they almost are for the year. They're going to be fine next year and beyond. They're going to bring in some players and get some other players back. But, I got no confidence.
I mean, I'm going with the Lions as well.
No.
I'm
setting ourselves up.
We are, but no, I just think you said before about horse racing form. I think the Pies, if we'll give them a pass and we'll say that the Adelaide game was a good win because it's still gone on the road and won.
It was a good win.
They've played 1 or 2 good games in 8-9 weeks. And I think that at some point, unless you can just completely turn it around, at some point that's gonna cost you. They probably would have been absolutely stoked to have finished 4th and known they were getting Adelaide. I reckon bleeding into it, they would have been, because they probably should have beaten Adelaide a couple of weeks earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Lions. I just think they're a different proposition, even without Lachie Neale.
Well, I've always felt that my guess was that that Geelong and Brisbane would meet in the grand final, and that was knowing when they were going to play in the quali. I always felt the loser of that game could circle back and get to the big dance. So we're 1 game away. But, I mean, if you had to seed them in terms of premiership picks, I would go Geelong, Brisbane, Collingwood, Hawthorn. Hawthorn terrify me.
I almost had Hawks over Collingwood. But yeah, it is so
even.
look like an idiot. The Pies will come out and win by 6 goals, and I'll look like an idiot.
Yeah,
but
that's why one of us should have picked them.
I just don't think the form. I just can't talk myself into the Pies form.
Yeah, and their selection or non-selection, again, we're talking before teams of how is,
That's
are they going to reach and pick him in? Is that going to backfire? Or is that going to be, the stabilising factor they need in that back six? So there's question marks for all teams, but these teams have played, 24 or 5 games to this point. So, once you've played that many games, everyone's hanging by a thread and maybe the healthiest team will win.
We probably say this every year, but I actually can't remember a more fascinating 2 prelims.
Yeah.
Within
really 22 hours apart at the G, almost 200,000 fans, a team trying to go back to back, the biggest team in the land, a team that's always there that everyone else hates, and then the upstart. It's the perfect setup.
Going from 8th to a grand final would be huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys, we will watch very closely. Enjoy your weekends, enjoy the game, and we'll recap it all next week.
We'll be getting ready for a grand final.
Beautiful. Good work.